Yes, sir.
Speaker Tillis, can you kind of tell some of us, and I hope I'm not the only one, but some of the YRs especially, some of the vetoes you've overridden, I guess, in your time there?
Some of the vetoes. Okay, 11 in total. And we had 8 up until 7 last year. The first budget, 2 of the overrides have been the budget. It was the first override last year. The governor vetoed it. We had 5 Democrats. Everybody thinks it's the same 5 Democrats that helped us with the vetoes, but in 3 or 4 cases, they have not. They've actually voted against it. We just happened to get a different members of the caucus to vote with us. So 2 of them were budget. Another one was medical malpractice reform. And that was and it's something that has been directly attributed it's been one of the factors. I can't honestly say it was a single factor that has reduced medical malpractice insurance rates in North Carolina by 7% over the last year. Regulatory reform. We passed a bill that sent a notice to the state regulatory agencies that they were not authorized to pass any net new regulations in excess of federal standards without a consultation with the legislature and the documentation of a business case that showed that the cost to the regulated entity was worth the added cost, so that the impact on the entity was worth the added cost. So regulatory reform. We did a bill to reform the Employment Security Commission. I don't know if y'all have been following unemployment and the situation that we have in the state, but we're in dire straits right now. We're about $3 billion in debt to the federal government, paying out unemployment benefits over the past several years. Probably another couple of $100 million has been accrued over the last year. Part of that's because we have a richer unemployment payout than other states. A part of it's because we have absolutely incompetent people running the Employment Security Commission. And so our bill, they're highly competent at being incompetent. In fact, I'll tell you a story. I was at a human, and I don't apologize having this tape, because I was at a human resources director meeting last year, and I got up and I spoke, and I said, the Employment Security Commission is killing you all. You all know what happens. You have people that will be fired because they stole something from the business. They are fired, and then when they go up on appeal to receive unemployment benefits, they say, well, he stole, but it wasn't that much. It's only a couple of $100. Stole from the business, and now that business is affected by having to do the payout for unemployment insurance. So I just said they're incompetent. And I said it's one of, in all the areas that I've worked with, there are several that need upgrades in management, but this one is like the best case for bad management. And I said, I think every one of them should be fired. I sat back down next to my general counsel, and he said, you know, the executive director of the Employment Security Commission is behind you. I said, oh, yeah. I said hello before I went up and talked. You know, it is what it is, folks. I mean, if you've got people who aren't doing the job, you've got to get them out of the way. So this bill was to restructure the Employment Security Commission, take it out of the Department of Administration, and over into the Department of Commerce. The governor vetoed it because some of her cronies wanted her vetoed it. We overrode it. We also had women's right to know, which is 24-hour notice before an abortion can be carried out. Controversial bill. Ended up having probably 72 or 73 votes. The supermajority is 72. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm missing. There were 1 or 2 that were more probably administrative.
Racial justice.
Oh no, this was the, I'm sorry, these were the 7 last year. Then fast forward to January. The governor vetoed the Racial Justice Act, which anybody who knows anything about prosecution knows is one of the most horrible bills that the Democrats have passed in the last 3 years. It has cost prosecutorial districts millions of dollars for frivolous motions supported under the Racial Justice Act for people who have been convicted of a capital crime whose guilt is not in question. This is just a question of whether or not statistics that may have been gathered in Western North Carolina can be applied to make a judgment that somebody in Eastern North Carolina wasn't given fair trial. So it wasn't the specifics of that particular area where that person was being tried. The veto we could not sustain the veto, but while we were around that day, we did override another bill which had to do with dues checkoff for the teachers union, and gave me a little bit of heat because they said it was in the middle of the night. I would argue it was early in the morning. But we were there, the governor called us back, so we did our job. The governor knows, and everybody knows, I've told the governor time and time again, when we are in session, they better show up for work. Because if the governor wants to play politics with these vetoes, any day that we're in session, I will call a vote if I think I have the count. Absent people who may be ill or in a hospital, I've never allowed a vote that actually relied on an illness or a sickness, but if somebody decides to go on vacation or go out of the country, they're fair game. When we're in session, they're supposed to be there. And people have asked me if I think that's unreasonable. I said to some Democrats it probably is unreasonable to show up for work, but I expect I can tell you it's probably the toughest decision that I made. And I made it because of other factors that went into that day, and honestly a situation where the governor was caught not being completely truthful. And every once in a while you have to assert your institutional integrity. It's probably not something I'll do again, that particular procedure to get that veto overridden. So that's number 8. Then 3 this year was another budget veto override. And then the Racial Justice Act Part 2. We ended up passing another bill that said we won't completely repeal the bill, but what we'll do is only allow statistics in the judicial district where the person was tried to potentially be used as an argument for saying there was a racial bias in the outcome. And if that occurs, then the capital sentence could be set aside and they would be in life in prison without parole. That got vetoed. We overrode it. And then the last one was fracking, natural gas fracking. You know, it's wonderful when you have so many of them, it's hard to keep track of. And the last one was natural gas fracturing. And that's another thing that's very important for everybody to understand. This is not a bill where drilling is going to occur next year. What we authorized is a process that will take probably 18 to 24 months to build a regulatory framework that we think will be environmentally sound, that will preserve property owner rights, do all the things that we have to do to mobilize, and then it has to come back to the legislature to be approved by that legislature, which it could be over 2 years. It could be the legislature I'm no longer a part of because I've term limited myself. I'm only running one more term. So it could be 2.5 years before that comes back. And that was one that y'all probably heard. There was an accidental vote involved. Anybody else? Y'all heard about that?
Becky Carney.
Representative Carney, who's from Mecklenburg County, after the vote, and y'all have to understand there's 10-second, 12-second window for voting. There's a red button and a green button, labeled aye and no. And we cast the vote. It was the third veto override, so it wasn't like it was a new sort of thing. You know, we kind of know yes means you're overriding the veto, no means you're sustaining it. And she came up afterwards, after I'd called the vote and announced that it had become law, and said, I voted the wrong way. And I said, you know, Representative Carney, you've been in this legislature a lot longer than me. You know that changing your vote when it changes the outcome is not allowed. It's in the House rules. And so we ended up winning that by just a hair. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be fine. It's going to come back for the legislature. I think it's good policy, and it's going to be good for economic development. So that's it. Sorry to take so long. There's a lot of them.